Kamala Harris's 2026 governor run versus Gavin Newsom. The California showdown. The political landscape of California is poised for a seismic shift as speculation mounts over a potential 2026 gubernatorial showdown between former Vice President Kamala Harris and incumbent Governor Gavin Newsom. While Newsom is term-limited and cannot run for re-election, the prospect of Harris entering the race to succeed him has ignited fervent debate, fueled by X posts, media reports, and political analyses. This article delves into the dynamics of their rivalry, Harris's lessons from her 2024 presidential campaign, Newsom's response to her potential comeback, and the broader implications for California's future. We'll incorporate sentiments from X, expert commentary, and a critical examination of the narrative to provide a comprehensive exploration of this unfolding political drama. Introduction. A California clash in the making. California, the nation's most populous state and a Democratic stronghold, is no stranger to high-stakes political battles. As Governor Gavin Newsom approaches the end of his second term in 2027, the race to replace him is already heating up, with former Vice President Kamala Harris emerging as a potential frontrunner. Despite Newsom's inability to run again due to term limits, his influence looms large, and the prospect of Harris challenging his legacy has sparked intense speculation. X posts have amplified this narrative, with users framing the contest as a showdown between two of California's most prominent Democrats, each with national ambitions and a shared history in the state's political machine. Harris, who served as California's Attorney General, 2011 to 2017, and U.S. Senator, 2017 to 2021. Before becoming vice president, is reportedly considering a gubernatorial bid as a way to reassert her political relevance after her 2024 presidential election loss to Donald Trump. Newsom, meanwhile, is seen as a potential 2028 presidential contender, making the 2026 governor's race a critical juncture for both figures. This article explores the factors driving Harris's potential run, the lessons she's drawn from 2024, Newsom's response to her resurgence, and the broader implications for California's political future. The context, Harris's political trajectory and 2024 lessons. Kamala Harris's political career is a study in ambition, resilience, and controversy. Born in Oakland, California, she rose through the ranks of San Francisco politics, serving as district attorney, 2004 to 2011, before becoming California's Attorney General and later a U.S. Senator. Her 2020 vice presidential nomination and subsequent 2021 to 2025 tenure as vice president cemented her as a historic figure. The first woman, Black, and South Asian vice president in U.S. history. However, her 2024 presidential campaign, launched after President Joe Biden declined to seek re-election, ended in defeat against a resurgent Donald Trump. Harris's 2024 campaign was a whirlwind, launched in just 107 days after Biden's withdrawal. While she energized Democrats with her prosecutorial style and focus on issues like reproductive rights and economic equity, her campaign faced significant challenges. Time constraints. The abbreviated timeline limited Harris's ability to build a robust national campaign infrastructure. Her rapid ascent as the Democratic nominee left little room for grassroots organizing in key swing states. Messaging struggles. Critics argued Harris struggled to articulate a clear vision distinct from Biden's record. Her focus on joy and hope resonated with some but failed to counter Trump's populist appeal on issues like inflation and immigration. Voter fatigue. After years of polarized politics, voters were wary of establishment figures. Harris's ties to the Biden administration, particularly on contentious issues like border security, became a liability. Republican attacks. Trump and his allies capitalized on Harris's past, framing her as a San Francisco liberal whose policies on crime and immigration were out of touch with mainstream America. X posts echoed these attacks, with users like Do the Right Wing warning that a Harris governorship could permanently destroy California. Post-election analyses suggest Harris is recalibrating her approach. According to sources close to her, she's engaging in deep discussions on issues like artificial intelligence and youth empowerment, signaling a desire to reconnect with California voters on state-specific concerns. Her decision to set a late summer 2025 deadline for announcing her gubernatorial plans reflects a strategic pause, allowing her to assess the political landscape and rebuild her image. Why governor? For Harris, a gubernatorial run offers several advantages. Homecoming narrative. Returning to California, where she built her career, allows Harris to leverage her deep ties to the state's Democratic establishment. Her name recognition and fundraising prowess, bolstered by a national donor network, give her a formidable policy platform. As governor, Harris could steer California's policies on housing, climate, and technology, addressing the state's most pressing challenges. This role offers more executive power than the vice presidency, where her influence was constrained by Biden's agenda. Political rehabilitation. After her 2024 loss, a successful gubernatorial run could reposition Harris as a viable 2028 presidential contender, though allies suggest a governorship might preclude another White House bid. However, skeptics question her commitment. A Los Angeles Times commentary noted that Harris must articulate a core purpose for seeking the governorship, warning against treating it as a stepping stone to higher office. Ex-users like Peter Santilli have mocked her potential run, calling her a DEI hire, incapable of outperforming Newsom's tenure. Gavin Newsom, the incumbent's legacy and response. Gavin Newsom, California's governor since 2019, has been a polarizing figure. A former San Francisco mayor and lieutenant governor, Newsom has championed progressive policies on climate change, healthcare, and gun control while navigating crises like wildfires, homelessness, and COVID-19. His national profile grew during the pandemic, positioning him as a leading voice against Trump's policies. However, his tenure has drawn criticism for California's high cost of living, housing shortage, and perceived mismanagement of state resources. Newsom's legacy. Newsom's governorship is defined by ambitious initiatives and high-profile controversies. Progressive policies. Newsom signed laws expanding Medicaid to undocumented immigrants, banning assault weapons, and setting aggressive climate goals, including a 2035 ban on new gas-powered vehicles. These moves solidified his progressive credentials but alienated moderates and Republicans. Economic challenges. California's budget deficits, driven by reliance on volatile tech sector revenues, have forced Newsom to make tough cuts to social programs. Critics argue his policies exacerbate the state's affordability crisis, with gas prices and housing costs among the nation's highest. Political ambitions. Newsom's frequent national media appearances and his 2021 podcast with Steve Bannon have fueled speculation about a 2028 presidential run. A November 2024 sports betting dime poll gave him plus 550 odds of becoming president, far ahead of Harris's plus 2,500. Trump feud. Newsom's clashes with Trump, particularly over immigration and wildfire response, have elevated his national stature. His defiant, "come and get me," tough guy response to Trump's 2025 threat of arrest over immigration protests rallied Democrats but deepened partisan divides. Newsom's response to Harris. While Newsom cannot run for governor in 2026, Harris's potential candidacy threatens his legacy. The two share a complicated history, having risen through San Francisco politics together. Newsom has remained publicly neutral on Harris's plans, but sources suggest he's wary of her overshadowing his achievements. A Politico report noted that Newsom's allies view Harris's run as a potential referendum on his tenure, with her campaign likely to highlight areas where she could do better. X posts reflect this tension. Users like Terrible808 have dismissed polls showing Harris as the Democratic frontrunner, calling them a joke and implying Newsom's record overshadows her. Others, like Jeff Vaughn, framed Harris's run as a natural progression, noting her as a favorite to succeed Newsom. Newsom's focus on national issues, such as his push for federal disaster aid and criticism of Trump's immigration policies, suggests he's pivoting toward a broader stage, potentially leaving Harris to dominate the state conversation. The rivalry. Harris versus Newsom's legacy. The narrative of a Harris-Newsom showdown is somewhat misleading, as Newsom cannot run in 2026. Instead, the contest is about their competing visions for California's future and their influence within the Democratic Party. Harris's potential run would inevitably invite comparisons to Newsom's record, with voters and pundits assessing whether she can address the state's challenges more effectively. Key points of comparison: policy priorities. Harris, likely to emphasize criminal justice reform, technology regulation, and equity-focused policies. Her experience as Attorney General and Senator gives her a strong foundation in these areas. Newsom, known for bold climate and healthcare initiatives but criticized for neglecting housing and economic affordability. Harris could position herself as a pragmatist on these issues, appealing to voters frustrated with Newsom's approach. Political style. Harris, a skilled communicator with a knack for viral moments, Harris excels at rallying Democratic bases. However, her 2024 campaign exposed weaknesses in connecting with moderates and independents. Newsom, a polished orator with a combative streak, Newsom thrives in high-stakes debates but alienates some with his perceived elitism. His national focus may leave room for Harris to dominate state-level discourse. Electoral strengths. Harris, polls show her with a commanding lead among Democrats, with 57% support in a February 2025 Emerson College poll and 72% in an October 2024 UC Berkeley survey. Her appeal is strongest among women, Hispanic, and Black voters. Newsom, while not a candidate, Newsom's endorsement could sway the race. His 42% approval rating in February 2025 suggests mixed public sentiment, which Harris could exploit. Field clearing effect. Harris's potential entry has already reshaped the Democratic primary. Several prominent Democrats, including Attorney General Rob Bonta and former Representative Katie Porter, have signaled they'd step aside if Harris runs. Bonta endorsed her, calling her a field-clearing candidate, while Porter suggested she'd avoid a primary challenge. This dynamic underscores Harris's dominance but raises concerns about a coronation rather than a competitive primary, which could alienate voters seeking fresh faces. X reactions. The pulse of public sentiment. X has been a hotbed of reactions to Harris's potential run, reflecting a polarized public. Here's a sampling of sentiments. Supportive voices. Users like Jeff Vaughn see Harris's run as a logical next step, citing her California roots and Newsom's term limits. Others praise her resilience, arguing she's uniquely qualified to lead the state. Critics. Conservative users like Peter Santilli and Ian Hanson's X have derided Harris, with terms like cackling sellout and DEI hire, reflecting a broader Republican strategy to paint her as incompetent. These attacks echo Trump's 2024 campaign rhetoric, which Harris will need to counter. Expert analysis. What's at stake? Political analysts offer varied perspectives on Harris's potential run and its implications. Dan Newman, Democratic strategist. Newman argues Harris's name recognition and fundraising prowess make her a formidable candidate, but she must avoid being seen as a default choice. He notes her ability to clear the field could backfire if voters perceive a lack of competition. Gary South, political consultant. South cautions that Harris isn't an 800-pound gorilla in California, citing mixed feelings among Democrats. He suggests her low profile since 2024 could hurt her unless she re-engages with voters. Mike Madrid, Republican consultant. Madrid sees Harris's run as a boon for Republicans, arguing it could nationalize the race and energize GOP donors. He predicts candidates like Richard Grenell or Chad Bianco could capitalize on anti-Harris sentiment. Stephanie Finnecane, columnist. Finnecane defends Harris's qualifications, arguing her experience as vice president, senator, and attorney general makes her a strong contender. She calls for a competitive primary, warning against dismissing Harris prematurely. Analysts agree that Harris's success hinges on her ability to address California's pressing issues, housing, homelessness, and economic inequality, while distancing herself from Newsom's unpopular policies. Her 2024 loss also means she must rebuild trust with voters skeptical of her national ambitions. Republican strategy, capitalizing on Harris. Republicans, long sidelined in California's deep blue politics, see Harris's potential run as an opportunity. The state hasn't elected a Republican governor since Arnold Schwarzenegger in 2006, but GOP strategists believe Harris's polarizing profile could galvanize their base. Richard Grenell, a Trump loyalist and former U.S. Ambassador Grinnell has teased a 2026 run if Harris enters, arguing her baggage makes her vulnerable. He claims hundreds of millions could be spent educating voters about her record. Chad Bianco, Riverside County Sheriff Bianco has announced his candidacy, positioning himself as a law and order alternative to Harris. His alignment with Trump's immigration stance could resonate in conservative pockets. Steve Hilton, the former Fox News host, is considering a run, framing Harris as a symbol of one-party rule failure. He aims to appeal to moderates frustrated with California's high taxes and crime rates. Republicans face an uphill battle, given Democrats' 2-to-1 voter registration advantage. However, a Capitol Weekly poll showed Harris in a closer race against Republican John Cox, 23% to 21%, suggesting she's not invincible. GOP candidates hope to nationalize the race, leveraging Trump's attacks on Harris to boost turnout and fundraising. Challenges for Harris's path to the governorship is fraught with obstacles. Voter skepticism. Polls show strong Democratic support, 57 to 72%, but her overall favorability is lower, with only 46% of likely voters backing her in a November 2024 UC Berkeley poll. Her absence from key California events, like the 2025 Democratic Party convention, has raised concerns about her engagement. Newsom's shadow. Harris must navigate Newsom's legacy without alienating his supporters. Criticizing his record risks fracturing the Democratic base, while endorsing it ties her to his failures. Republican attacks. GOP candidates will likely revive Trump's 2024 playbook, focusing on Harris's tenure as San Francisco DA and her border security role as vice president. X posts like it do. The right wing's warning of permanent destruction reflect this strategy. Primary dynamics. While Harris could clear the Democratic field, a crowded primary with candidates like Antonio Villaraigosa, Xavier Becerra, or Tony Atkins could dilute her support. Villaraigosa's recent criticism of Harris over Biden's 2024 campaign suggests he's prepared to challenge her. Opportunities for Harris. Despite these challenges, Harris has significant opportunities. Name recognition. Her near-universal name recognition gives her a head start over lesser-known rivals. Fundraising prowess. Harris's national donor network in California ties ensure a financial advantage, critical in a state where campaigns often exceed $40 million. Demographic appeal. Her strong support among women, Hispanic, and Black voters aligns with California's diverse electorate policy platform. By focusing on housing, climate, and tech regulation, Harris can address voter priorities while distinguishing herself from Newsom. The broader implications. A Harris governorship would have far-reaching implications. California's future. As the world's fifth-largest economy, California faces daunting challenges: housing shortages, climate-driven wildfires, and budget deficits. Harris's ability to deliver results would shape the state's trajectory and her political legacy. Democratic Party dynamics. A Harris win could solidify her as a party leader, potentially overshadowing Newsom's 2028 ambitions. Conversely, a loss could weaken her influence and boost emerging Democrats like Porter or Villaraigosa. National politics. A successful governorship could reposition Harris for 2028, though analysts argue it's unlikely she'd run for president so soon after winning. Newsom's national focus suggests he's already eyeing the White House, setting up a potential intra-party clash. Conclusion. Will Harris reclaim California? The prospect of Kamala Harris running for California governor in 2026 has set the stage for a high-stakes political drama, even if Gavin Newsom isn't on the ballot. Harris's decision, due by late summer 2025, will reshape the race, with her entry likely to clear the Democratic field but invite fierce Republican opposition.